Hello everybody, and welcome to the second class of Scratch Programming for Beginners. Today, we will be focusing on interactions. There are two main types of interactions. The first main type is user interaction, where the user is interacting with the sprite. The second main one is stage interaction, where the stage is interacting with your sprite. And by doing this, you're able to find many different kinds of things you can do, like creating games or making questionnaires, or even making cool, unique things with your code.
So we're going to start ahead and create a new project. So for interactions, as we said before, we have two different kinds. We have user interaction and stage interaction. Now, both of these heavily rely on three major parts of Scratch. They are control, sensing, and operators. And there's a reason for this. Control helps control your speed, your code. So like if you're doing something, if you're sensing something, which is what this hexagonal shape means. So if you sense something, then what do? Sensing helps control these. So like what is the being sensed? Like if the right arrow is being pressed, then what do we want to do? Well, we'd probably want to change x by 10. So it moves to the right. You can also show this by taking a forever block and taking the events. If you hit the right arrow, you can see it goes to the right. Now operators come handy if you want to use the arrow keys and the WASD keys. So now we can take the OR, duplicate, and change this to D. Now, drag these both into here. If we run it, bring Scratchy over here, we can see we can use the right arrow key or the D arrow key. Because what's the condition? If the right arrow key is pressed or the key D is pressed, then we change X by 10. Now we can duplicate this multiple times. Instead of the right arrow, we could make it the left arrow. Instead of D, we could make it A. And then we can change it to -10. We can duplicate these again and change this to the up arrow and W, or the down arrow and S. We also need to change these X's to I's. So if we click the play button, we see that we can use the arrow keys. They're all around freely. Okay, now that's just sensing with the arrow keys. There's also different kinds of sensing. We can also have touch sensing. For example, if touching mouse pointer, say hello. So play it. Hello, hello. We even have mouse down. So if I click on the sprite, it's saying hello. But what if I click over here outside the sprite? It still says hello. But we want it to only say hello when we click on this sprite. So how do we do that? Well, it's simple. We go back to operators. We bring out an and because we want it to be the mouse down and touching the mouse pointer. So if we put it there, we display. I'm touching the mouse. It's not saying hello. I'm clicking outside. It's still not saying hello. But if I click and I'm touching the sprite, it says hello. Because it needs both of these conditions to be allowed to be able to go into that if statement. Okay. Next thing we need to know for user interactions is for you being able to talk with the sprite. Now, let me explain this. In sensing, we have something called questions. Ask, what is your name? We can also ask, where do you live? These kind of questions can be really useful if you're trying to make a questionnaire or something like that. Then we have answer. We can go to here, if answer is equal to say New Jersey, then say good job. So if we play it and I type in New Jersey, it says good job. It uses that answer from this to give me an answer. Now that's mostly everything about user interaction. How you, the user, are interacting with the sprite that you have here. But that's not the only type of interactions, as we said before. We have the second type, stage interactions, where your sprite is interacting with other sprites on the stage. So let's go ahead and choose a sprite. Let's pick a ball for simplicity's sake. Now we have this little ball over here, and we want to see what we can do with this, right? Now, with this ball, we want Scratchy, once he touches it, to say, I caught it. So, motion, we have to start off with the events. So, event. Now, what do we want to do once it starts? I want it to um, go to a random position. So, let's think about this. Why? Repeat until touching ball. So, repeat until touching ball, glide 1 second to a random position, and once it retouches ball, it'll get out of this loop. So now, once it's out of the loop, we wanted to say, oh, whoops, I caught it. Oh God, I found it. There. So let's play. As you can see, Scratchy's moving around. Let's see if he can touch it. He found it. Look at that. That's how the sprites interact with its surroundings. Now, that's not the only way you can do it. We also have ball. We could say events, forever, motion, go to, mouse pointer. So if you play this, play it again, we can see that Scratchy is floating around, and now the ball is following my mouse. Another form of user interaction. Now, if I try to touch Scratchy with the mouse, you have this. I found it. Now, of course, we can make this harder by saying 0.1 second. It's very hard to get a hold on him. See? Now, another way we can do this is what if we have another type, like if Scratchy is supposed to stay still when something happens. Like if you're in a game and you have the game, you're going on, this is the game, it's happening, and then once the game's over, you need to have a game over sign, right? So what happens once we touch it? If say I found it for 2 seconds, and then after you say well I found it, then we could say hide, and then maybe switch a costume. Now we're gonna make our second costume. Instead of this, we can make it into a game over sign. So game. Okay. Now we just move it over here. Bring this over here. And there we go. Now code. And then we shake show. So let's play. At the beginning, we wanted to switch costume back to costume 1. And then it says game over. And look at that. A beautiful, beautiful form of user and stage interaction. Now, to do these, we need to be able to make sure that we fully understand control, sensing, and operators. So let's go ahead and control and thoroughly understand what each and every one of these do. So wait makes the sprite wait for 1 second. Your entire code just stops for a second and allows you to wait. This can be especially useful if you're in a game and you want to wait for the balls to drop down. The next one is repeat. Repeat can be useful if you don't want it to do it forever and ever and ever. or have a condition. You want to repeat it just a certain amount of times, and that's it. The next one is forever. Forever blocks are really useful if you need have sensing, because what happens is that it only checks it once and then it just goes on. You need to be able to check it again and again and again for it able to be used. That's why the forever block is very useful. The next one is if. If statements are really useful if you're trying to use user input and trying to make it into something new, like motion. If else statements are also useful, but not in a different way than you think. For example, if you're sensing something, then do this. But if you're not sensing it, then do something else. It's basically another way of this, but allows you to revert it back to its original form. Wait until really helps. For example, if you're waiting until somebody to do something, like if you're waiting for the score to be equal to something to be able to change change the stage, or you're waiting until if you're waiting until you lose the game to be able to say, haha, you lose, something like that. We also have the repeat until, which we showed over here. We saw how by using repeat until we're able to modify and change this whole thing so that only touching the ball do you stop doing this. We also have the stop one. This stops basically everything, all scripts, all sprites. You can also change it to this script specifically, or other scripts in this sprite, which is also very useful if you're trying to stop it from doing something. Like if you have a character that's moving around, but when the game is over, you don't want it to move anymore, stopping the other scripts in sprite can be really useful. Clones are another big part. Clones are extremely useful if you're trying to make games where you just have so many different objects of the same thing and you just don't want to code it over and over and over again. Clones are really, really useful. By creating a clone of yourself here, and then when you start as a clone, code information from it, you're able to create really, really unique games and different ideas. Next is sensing. Now, while it seems very unreasonable to learn this, it's still a very important part of knowing this. If it's touching the mouse pointer, meaning if it can touch anything, like whether it's a user input like the mouse, or is it something like the edge of the screen or the ball, another user in Sprite. So that's why you need to be very careful about these. Each one of them has their own part, and each and every single one of them are useful. Like if the key space is this, or what's the mouse down, what's the drag mode, what's the loudness. For example, if we allow it, you can see as I'm talking, it increases, but as I'm not talking, it decreases. We also have timers, be able to measure time. From the beginning you start your thing. You reset them using the reset button. Like that. We also have backdrop numbers. What is the current year? Day, week, hour, minute, second. Day since 2000. Username. All those different stuff. And lastly, we also have operators. Operators are extremely useful. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division can be used for like picking out levels, using friction to be able to slow your things down, making all these different types of calculations to help you be able to make your thing really, really unique. We also have pick random 1 to 10. This can be useful if you're trying to say pick a random costume number or pick a random stage, things like that. The greater than, less than, or equal to can be used for like leveling. Like if you reach a certain level, then do this. If you're above this level, that or this score, say you win. If you're below this, say you lose. We also have and or not, as you've seen before, to be able to make sure that we are changing what is our conditions and our if statements, which are really useful if we need multiple things that need to be fulfilled, different things that can be fulfilled, and things that should not be fulfilled. You also have all of these different things like mod, round, and absolute value of. This one is very unique. You get a multitude of different mathematical functions, and if you use sign, actually, you can make it so that you have a title which goes in, out, in, out. It's really, really useful. And another very important part are variables. And while it may seem really trivial, variables are really important because you can use them to check what you can do in your if statements to be able to change your input and output. But that's all there is to it for interactions. Whether it be user interaction, meaning you, the user, are doing something on your keyboard or your mouse, or you're doing something to the sprite, or it be stage interaction where your sprite, Scratchy, is interacting with its surroundings, like the ball or some other sprite. Anyways, this is the basics on is interactions. By combining all of these different functions and parts of Scratch, you can create something very, very interesting, like a game amazingly good. Until next time, bye.